Hello and welcome to Let's Boot Angular 4 end-to-end testing minimal introduction with Protractor. Alongside this video, you will find a Medium article in our Let's Boot Medium publication with all the detailed code and explanations. What we want to look at is we want to make a very quick comparison between unit component testing and end-to-end testing. Then we want to look at an Angular application I prepared for this video. We want to create a page object matching this application, which we then use to write actual tests, which we then run. So let's start with the comparison. Unit and component testing is to test a very specific functionality in a very specific part of your code. So usually in unit and component testing, you want to test one single function and one specific behavior of it, where you so-called mock or provide everything around this functionality in a controlled manner. So it means if you, for example, need a HTTP API which delivers test data, then you're not using the real API, but you're providing a mocked API for your tests that provides always the same data. So you test a specific functionality for a specific behavior in a controlled environment. Unit and component testing, that you do not break a previously defined behavior in a specific part of your code. And for me, the most important point, it also forces you to write better code with a nicer structure, because well-written and structured code is much easier to unit and component test. And unit and component test helps you also to test edge cases. Edge cases you may not test or find within end-to-end testing. And now end-to-end testing, on the other hand, focuses to test a complete process in a real-world scenario with the actual APIs, databases, or whatever you need to test your application. And end-to-end testing focuses on the user side of the browser with the actual real application running, doing multiple steps over multiple components. So to keep the answer short, you will need both end-to-end testing to actually test functionality for the user over multiple steps in the real-world application, and you need unit and component test to ensure code structure quality and to ensure that you don't break the previously defined behavior of your code. So let's take a quick look at the application we have prepared. It's an Angular CLI generated application. I really recommend you to use Angular CLI for all your projects. So in source app, we have one component, and this component has a title, it has points, which is a variable that is shown, and then we have two buttons, one button that increases the points and one button that resets the points to 0. And then if we look into the TypeScript, we have the representation of this in the component class with the title variable, the points variable starting at 1. Then we have the function +1 increasing the points variable, and the function reset setting the points to 0. If we want to test this application, we go into the end-to-end folder, which is provided by Angular CLI. And there we have two files for our main page. One is the so-called page object, and one is the end-to-end spec. If we look at this page object, we'll see a simple TypeScript class with a function to navigate to this page and a function to get the title text of the H1 header. So this class is to give the developer who writes tests an easy and straightforward handle on your application. So when you change the HTML structure, or when you change the structure of your application, you only have to change the page object and not all the tests. So we take this to this side, and we also take the test file. And in the test file, we have the default test from Angular CLI, and we want to write our first test, which checks the content of this title field. So should display title, let's learn. And then we have here the get title, and we can write here let's learn. And if we look at this test file, it looks very similar to Angular component tests with Jasmine. So we have the description describing a test suite. Then we have the variable for the page object. And then we have this before each function, which is run before each it statement, and all those it statements are actually the tests. And in this before each function, we create a new let's learn page object, which makes sure that we always have a new fresh state for our test. So let's start with this very simple test and just run it. ng e2e. If we run this, Angular CLI will start Webpack to build the application. Webpack runs TypeScript to compile your TypeScript. Then Protractor is called, which starts Chrome and then runs your tests against the Chrome API. So we see this test worked out. So now, before we write more tests, we want to represent our UI in our page object. So let's access those parts of the page we need. So first we'll start with the points, get points. And to get the points, I think about how can I get into this span from a user view. So I try to think about because of which elements do I know that this is the points variable. So in this case, I will focus on the text points because I don't want to add unnecessary classes or IDs or whatsoever. So let's get this element. Return element, and then we use this by CSS, but we use by CSS containing text. And this way we can say we want a div that contains the text points. And this is the element around the actual points. And within that one, we are looking for a span element. And from that, we want to get the text. So this way, we have an abstract way to get this exact element. Okay, so now let's get the buttons. So we basically get the +1 button by calling this element function again. And this time, we also use the CSS containing text. We want to get a button that shouldn't change, and the button should be called +1, and that's already it. And we can repeat the same thing for get reset button. So even if the HTML structure around it changes or if more buttons are introduced, this page object will continue to work. And if it changes, we just have to change the page object and not the tests. So now let's write some tests based on that. In the Medium article you will find some more tests, but I will just do one simple test touching everything. So should click 3 times and reset with matching points. And now let's hand over the callback that executes the tests. So we want to page navigate to, and then we want to expect that the points start with 1, and as 1 is a string, we'll test for a string. And now we want to click 3 times, so we get the +1 button and then we click it, and I do this 3 times. And you may think now why I'm not writing a loop, and the reason is simple. I want to keep complexity of my tests as low as possible. So it's very easy to see what's happening and to know if the test is actually doing what I want it to do. The more complex your tests become, the harder it is to know if your tests are actually doing what they should. Because tests are about readability and doing the things in a very predictable way. So now we click 3 times. That means we should get 4 points. And now if we reset the points to 0, we can get page get reset button, and we can click this one, and then we can expect it to be 0. This is a more complex end-to-end walkthrough. And even if I would separate the components, let's say we put the buttons into a component and we put the points into a component, this end-to-end test would still work. So let's run it. And in the next video and article, we will look at how we can integrate end-to-end testing into a continuous integration system. So whenever somebody of your team is pushing a change to your repository, those end-to-end tests are run. And also when we do continuous delivery, all end-to-end tests have to be successful to deliver either to a stage test system or to a production system. So thank you very much, and follow us to keep on getting more and better videos We are at the very beginning. We're still improving sound and quality and learning about how to do it the right way. Stay with us and look forward to weekly videos with a higher and higher improving quality. Thank you.